Hey, this is Andy Henriquez, founder of the Master Storyteller Academy and business storytelling coach. I hope that you have absolutely been enjoying the First Time Storytelling Summit. I know you've probably learned so much from hearing from some of the many other speakers, but I want to share something with you during our time that I hope just creates a little more value for you and gets you to really understand the importance of sharing and telling stories when you are talking about your products or your services, or you're just trying to connect with somebody else and possibly influence them. And I think that there's no better way for me to go ahead and share this with you than to go ahead and share a quick story with you. So I remember I was about to turn 16 years old and I was completely sold out on getting my very first vehicle. As a matter of fact, I remember begging my mom over and over again, saying, Mom, could you please, please, please buy me my very first car? And so unfortunately, my mom just didn't have the resources. She didn't have the money. And one day I came home from school and I caught a big break. And what happened is my mom had gotten a $5,000 unexpected check in the mail, which was actually a pre-approved loan from the bank. And she said, Andy, you know what? Since you've been such a good student, I'm going to purchase you your first car. And I'm telling you, I was so excited. We went out that weekend and I came home with a black Ford Bronco 2 Eddie Bauer edition. It was black, beige side trim, beige interior. And I was so excited when I got home. Now, this was before you just posted a picture on social media. And so I went home, I picked up the house phone and I called up my friends at school and I said, oh my gosh, my mom bought me this Ford Bronco 2 Eddie Bauer edition. And so I told my friends, meet me at school Monday morning right by the bus stop. Now you can imagine the reason why I wanted to meet me by the bus stop is because I wanted them all to see my new car, right? And so I could not wait. That Sunday evening, I laid my clothes out early. I was so excited. I can't wait to get to school and show everybody my new car. And Monday morning, I wake up, I get dressed, I'm ready to go. I walk out to the kitchen and I'm looking for my car keys and I can't find my car keys. And I'm thinking to myself, like, what in the world happened to my car keys? So I make my way over to my mom's bedroom. I say, hey, Mom, have you seen my car keys? And my mom walks over to the door. Now, my parents are originally from Haiti, and my mom has a pretty strong Haitian accent. She opens up the door and she goes, NZ, baby, you know, mommy had to work very hard to be able to buy you the car, baby. You know, mommy had to use the loan, and mommy does not have the money to be able to pay for the insurance. So until you get a job and you can pay for the insurance, baby, the car is gonna sit right there. Now, when my mom starts using her hands to tell you something, it means it's pretty finite, like it's over, end of discussion. And I remember begging her, but Mom, please, I already told my friends I was gonna drive the car to school. And my mom made me ride the bus to school that day. And I remember how embarrassed I was when all my friends saw me getting off of that big yellow bus instead of getting out of my car. And all day long at school, they were teasing me, right? They said, Andy, is your new car a bus? Because you showed up to school today on a bus, right? And I was so embarrassed. And so the whole time I'm at school, I'm thinking to myself, like, where can I go where I can get a job and be able to pay for the insurance? And so there was a grocery store that was within a bike ride's distance of my house. And so I remember as soon as I got home, I jumped on my bicycle. I rode my bicycle over to the local grocery store down in South Florida, a grocery store by the name of Publix Supermarket. And there was a store manager. His name was Mr. Olson. And I went up to Mr. Olson. I said, Mr. Olson, sir, can I fill out an application, be a bag boy? He said, absolutely. And so I filled out an application. I said, Mr. Olson, when should I expect to hear back from you all? And he said, hey, young man, come back in a couple of days. It's about 2 days go by and I go back in to check on my application. He says, hey, I remember you, young man. We don't have any openings right now, but come back in a couple more days. And so 3 days go by and I come back in, I'm checking on my application. He says, hey, listen, we haven't forgotten about you. We don't have any openings. Come back in a couple more days. And this goes on and on. Now I'm about 2.5 weeks in. And unfortunately for me, the car is still sitting right there in my driveway. My friends, my 16-year-old reputation is on the line because now my friends are saying, Andy, we don't even know if you even really have a vehicle, right? You're claiming you have a vehicle, but we don't even know if it is. And so I remember just feeling so deflated, coming home and seeing that car sit in my driveway. And because of the fact I didn't have a job and I couldn't pay for the insurance, my friends teasing me at school, I was like, something's got to give. And so I'll never forget this. About 2.5 weeks go by. I come home on a Friday, and this time I was like, I got to do something different. And so I get on my bicycle, I ride it back to the grocery store. Mr. Olson, the store manager, is there. He sees me and he starts walking the opposite direction. At this point, he's trying to avoid me. And so I remember I ran up to Mr. Olson. I said, Mr. Olson, sir, could you just listen to me for a moment, sir? My name's Andy Henriquez. I attend school at Plantation High School, sir. I turned 16 not too long ago, and I've been begging my mom to buy me a car, and she finally bought me a car, Mr. Olson. But the car's sitting in the driveway because she said, I can't drive until I get a job and I can pay for the insurance. I've been coming in here. You keep telling me to come back. And finally, I said, Mr. Olson, sir, don't you remember your first car? Ha ha. Something happened in that moment. Mr. Olson went down memory lane. He started like talking to me about how his first car was a Chevy Camaro and how it needed a bunch of work. And I couldn't believe that like all of a sudden he was engaged. This man who had been really just telling me to come back and come back and come back, who really wasn't interested in what I had to share before, all of a sudden now he starts talking to me about his first car. And then he walks me over to the counter and he pulls out a stack of applications. And he flips through the stack, and my application was at the bottom of the stack. And I saw him take my application from the bottom of the stack, and then he placed it at the top of the stack. And then he said, hey, young man, before you can start working here, you got to come to orientation tomorrow at 12. And I remember saying, wait a second. Are you saying I have the job? And he said, look, yes, I'm saying you're finally going to be able to drive your truck. And I remember leaving there so excited, because I finally got the job and I was going to be able to drive my car and bring it to school. And then I started thinking about like, what happened? What was the difference maker? And that's where I think the lesson was for me. And I think the lesson is for you. You see, what I realized is that that story that I shared about my first car created a connection between me at 16 years old and Mr. Olson was probably in his early 50s. But Mr. Olson, going back to that moment, thinking about his first car, created a connection between the both of us. So the first thing, if you're a note taker, I want you to write this down, is that stories give you the ability to be able to connect. And it allows you to be able to cross barriers, because me and Mr. Olson had a big age gap, but he could relate to the first car. And so that story allowed me to build connections. So if you want to build faster, more meaningful connections with people, you want to get really, really great at sharing stories. So stories help you to build a connection. The second thing is that I realized is this, is that I went from being at the bottom of the stack of applications to the top of the stack. In other words, I was able to go from being last of consideration to top of consideration. You see, the story separated me from the competition. And so what I want you to understand is that a story gives you the ability to be able to stand out. A story allows you to separate yourself from the competition. So if you've been looking for a competitive advantage in whatever it is that you're doing, telling stories can give you a competitive advantage. It can help you to stand out. It can help you to differentiate yourself from everybody else. And so the third thing that I want you to realize is this, that all of the previous times that I went to Mr. Olson, the store manager, he was not interested. But because of the fact that I shared a story, with that story, I was able to influence him and get him to say yes. And so here's what I want you to realize. Using stories can help you to hear more people say yes, to get more people to say yes. In other words, stories give you the ability to influence. Something about the story, something about the connection between me and Mr. Olson and getting him to think about his first car allowed me to be able to influence him to say yes and finally give me the job. And so if you want to be able to be a better influencer, you want to influence more people to say yes, more people to buy your products, your services, influence more people to support your nonprofit, influence your kids to do something that you've been wanting them to do, whatever you're looking to influence, leveraging a story will really, really help you to do that. So I'm hoping you got some value from our time together. And remember that stories help you to build connection. Stories help you to separate yourself from the competition. And stories ultimately help you to get to more yeses. And so I'm going to encourage you to find a way to leverage and share stories. I hope that you enjoy the rest of the summit. Once again, this is Andy Henriquez. I'm a business storytelling coach and the founder of the Master Storyteller Academy. And I'm just so grateful to have been able to spend this time with you. And I hope that you continue to get out there and share and tell more stories.